I used to live just 3 houses down from the place. The Rogers house. A weathered old thing at 1815 Driscoll Street in Houston, Texas. Most days, I'd walk past it on my way to the corner store. Never thought much about it. But now I can't unsee that image burned into my brain. It started on a sticky June morning in 1965. The neighborhood buzzed with whispers. No one's seen Rogers in days, someone said. Newspapers piling up, dog barking like mad. I didn't think much of it until the smell hit me. You know that smell. Sickly sweet and wrong. It seeps into your throat, makes your stomach churn. That's when I knew something was off. A few of us knocked on the door, but no one answered. The curtains were drawn, dead silence. We called the police. When they arrived, the officers didn't need long. The front door was unlocked. Inside was quiet. Too quiet. No sign of struggle, no broken glass, no blood, just an eerie stillness. Then they opened the fridge. I still remember the look on the officer's face. He went pale, dropped his flashlight. Another officer leaned in and retched. Inside the refrigerator were body parts, human, wrapped in neat packages like cuts of meat from the butcher. The heads were in the vegetable crisper. Later, we found out they were Fred and Edwina Rogers, an old couple in their 60s. Kind people, always smiled, waved from the porch. Murdered, dismembered, stuffed in their own fridge. But here's the thing. Their son, Charles Rogers, was gone. Just gone, like a ghost. No signs of a struggle, no footprints, no fingerprints, nothing. And that was just the beginning. I had seen Charles maybe 3 times in my entire life, and I lived 3 houses down. He was a recluse. Tall, gaunt, moved like a shadow. He never spoke to anyone, didn't wave, didn't smile. When he left the house, if he left at all, it was before dawn or after midnight. No one ever saw him during the day. Some said he was a genius, a Navy veteran, a pilot, fluent in multiple languages. He had a degree in nuclear physics, or maybe it was engineering, no one could say for sure. Others thought he was just odd, paranoid, maybe even dangerous. His parents, Fred and Edwina, barely mentioned him. People assumed he still lived there, though the house was so quiet it might as well have been abandoned. Some of the neighbors joked the place was haunted. Turns out they weren't too far off. After the bodies were found, the police searched every inch of that house. What they found upstairs was like something out of a nightmare. Charles's bedroom was barricaded from the inside, furniture stacked against the door. No one could figure out how he'd even gotten out. When they finally broke in, they found shelves stacked with radios, maps, shortwave equipment, walls covered in scribbles, coordinates, codes, government frequencies. The whole place looked more like a bunker than a bedroom. It felt calculated. Like whoever lived in that room had been planning something for a long, long time. And then they found the attic hatch open. There were no fingerprints, no signs of forced entry. Just a small trail of dried blood leading to the ceiling, like something had been dragged, then vanished. That was the last physical trace of Charles Rogers. No wallet, no credit cards, no activity. It was as if the earth had swallowed him whole. The house was declared a crime scene for weeks. Police came and went, but answers never did. I remember watching from across the street when they wheeled out the refrigerator, covered in a white sheet, but we all knew what was inside. And still, no one could believe it. Not in our neighborhood. Not from someone like Charles, if anyone even really knew who he was. The autopsies were brutal. Fred had been bludgeoned with a hammer, his skull cracked like porcelain. Edwina, they said she was beaten, but that wasn't the worst of it. She'd been violated. Someone had reached inside her. They found her organs stuffed down the toilet and flushed. Her eyes were gone. This wasn't just murder, it was rage. cold, meticulous rage, and all signs pointed to Charles. In the days that followed, detectives uncovered a terrifying trail. Charles hadn't just killed them, he'd planned it. There were receipts from a nearby hardware store, cleaning chemicals, gloves, plastic sheeting, notes, detailed notes about body disposal, blood drainage, and how to dismember quietly. They also found his journal, pages and pages of rants, paranoia, accusations that his parents had been stealing money from him, that they were agents sent to monitor his movements. He believed they had him under surveillance, tapping the phones, poisoning his food, watching him through the walls. One entry read, "They smile at me like they're human, but I know what hides behind those eyes. I will end the watchers. I will be free." The cops thought he'd snapped, that isolation had cracked his mind like a brittle shell. But others weren't so sure. One officer swore he found newspaper clippings about CIA programs, mind control experiments, and references to something called MK Ultra. Some believed Charles wasn't crazy. He was hiding, running from something bigger than all of us. But where did he go? And how? There were no footprints, no neighbors saw him leave, no airport records, no car missing. It was as if Charles Rogers simply vanished into thin air. In the weeks that followed, Charles Rogers became more than a fugitive. He became a myth. Detectives issued a nationwide manhunt. Flyers went up. His photo was plastered across newspapers and TV screens. But nothing came back. No sightings, no tips, not a single credible lead. It was like trying to catch smoke with your bare hands. But the house still whispered his name. I remember sneaking into the backyard once, long after the cops had cleared out. The place had this heaviness to it, like the walls were holding their breath. I peered through the grimy kitchen window, and for a second, I could swear I saw movement. Just a flicker, a shadow shifting in the hallway. But when I looked again, nothing. Years passed. Rumors grew. Some believed Charles had escaped to Mexico. Others said he was hiding in South America, working under an alias. There was even a theory that he joined the CIA, vanished into the system that had supposedly been watching him all along. Then came the strangest lead of all. A retired private investigator came forward decades later claiming Charles had made contact, said he'd received a package in the mail, unmarked, no return address. Inside, a single photograph. It was grainy, old, but you could make out a man sitting in a plastic chair on a beach, somewhere tropical. His head was turned, but the posture, the jawline, it was enough to give you chills. Was it Charles? We'll never know. The investigator died of a heart attack 2 weeks later. No one has seen or heard from Charles Rogers since 1965. No bank withdrawals, no fingerprints, no family. Just that one monstrous act frozen in time like the bodies he left behind. And me? I still walk past the old house sometimes. It's boarded up now, windows shattered, paint peeling. But when the wind blows just right, I swear I can hear something. A voice, maybe? Or the hum of a radio crackling behind the walls. I spent years trying to forget what happened, but the silence never let me. The kind of silence that buzzes in your ears, like something just on the edge of sound. I started digging. Old records, case files, anything I could find. And the more I looked, the stranger it got. One file mentioned Charles had been a seismologist for Shell Oil. He mapped underground fault lines, knew how to read terrain, track movement, navigate without being seen. That kind of knowledge, you don't just lose it, you use it. Then I found something chilling. an old map of Houston marked with strange symbols and coordinates. It matched what investigators found on the walls of his room. Lines drawn across the Gulf, circles around shipping routes, and one word scribbled over and over again: extraction. Some say Charles planned his escape for years, built a hidden tunnel beneath the house, maybe even faked his own death somewhere far away. But others believe something darker. The CIA theory refused to die. People claim Charles was part of Operation Midnight Climax, a real project where the government dosed civilians with LSD to test mind control. What if his parents found out? What if they tried to stop him or expose him? And what if he wasn't the only one? In one of his notebooks, there's a single sentence that still haunts me. They're listening. They're always listening. But the icebox keeps the voices still. Was it a metaphor, a delusion, or something he truly believed? I've heard people say evil doesn't disappear, it just waits. Charles may be dead, or he may be living under a new name in a new country with the same cold eyes. I wouldn't know. But sometimes, when the radio flickers at night and the static comes through sharp as a knife, I think about that fridge, about the heads in the crisper, about a man with no trace, no shadow, and no soul. And I wonder, is he listening too?
It's been decades now. Neighbors have moved. Children who once rode bikes down Driscoll Street have grown old and scattered. The Rogers house stands like a rotting tooth in the middle of a changed city. They tried to sell it once, stripped the wallpaper, painted over the bloodstains, even replaced the kitchen floor. But no one stays. Tenants report strange noises, radios turning on in the middle of the night, tuned to static, whispering like breath against glass. One woman swore she saw a figure staring at her from inside the fridge. When she opened it, nothing was there, just the cold hum, and the echo of something long buried. They say places remember, and so do people. Sometimes I wake up at 3 a.m. in a sweat, convinced I've heard the door creak open, or a voice, low, calm, whispering something I can't quite understand. And always, always the smell. That sickly sweetness like death wrapped in plastic. I moved away for a time, thought distance would bring peace. But you don't forget something like that. You can't. Charles Rogers was never found. No body, no confession, no justice. Just theories, just fear, just silence. But here's the part that gnaws at me. What if he never left? What if he's still here, somewhere nearby, watching? What if he walks past me in the grocery store or sits behind me at the bus stop? What if he lives under a different name, a different face, but with the same hands that once dismembered his own parents? I used to think monsters lived in stories, that evil wore masks and walked only in dreams. Now I know better. Sometimes the most terrifying thing isn't what's hiding under your bed. It's what used to live down the street. And sometimes it still does.